Welcome back to another episode of the Grapevine. I'm Riham.
Susan.
I'm Susie.
And today we have a very special guest. We have Father Maurice from St. Mary and Archangel Michael
and
from
St. Athanasius.
and St. Athanasius Church in Orlando. Okay. Thank you, Abuna, for here with us today.
My pleasure.
So today we are talking about something that is very sensitive and may not be the most favorite topic to talk about for a lot of people. But I do believe that every topic has its own audience and people who may be interested in it. And this topic for me is interesting, and I really want to learn more about it. Today we're talking about the mourning traditions in the Coptic tradition or culture, and also from a Christian perspective. So Abuna, let me ask you this first. What is death from a Christian perspective?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, first of all.
No problem.
Death from a Christian perspective is just a passage from earth to heaven or to Hades. One of the things that Christ has come on earth to defeat is death. Our perception of death has changed once Jesus came, the Word incarnate, on earth, and once he was resurrected, and he trampled death by his own death.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
So sorry.
Go ahead.
So basically, it's not as sad as we shouldn't be as sad then. We should be really happy because it's more like passing from this life to the next life, right?
Which
Sure.
is a better life.
Yeah.
Which is hopefully for most
Right.
people or some people, yes.
So our perception of death really is really around the separation. People tend to be sad because they are going to leave someone or they won't see the person again. That's usually the main reason why people are sad or why they're mourning. But our church is so beautiful that we remind people in the readings of all of our customs about the hope that we have in heaven. If you follow the rites of the prayers for the person that just passes, there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of passages about the resurrection. So it's a balanced, that's the beauty of our Orthodox faith. It's a balanced faith. We can't go too extreme to the sadness, and we can't go to the extreme of just being overly joyous that someone just died.
Right.
So
Right.
it's all about the balance in our church.
So that was actually related to my next question. So do we mourn death or do we celebrate this? And I know the word celebrate doesn't mean that we're joyous or happy, but a celebration, even in the American culture, they call it, we celebrate the death or the passing of somebody. We talk about the things that they've done nice in their lives and things like that. And I feel that we don't really do that part that well or that much in our culture.
Actually, we do. If you look at the funeral rites of, let's say, a saint that was just martyred, you'll see that a lot of his family or her family, they tend to be wearing white, they tend to be celebrating, they tend to be happy that this person ended their journey on earth, and they are sure that they are in heaven, and they are sure that they are interceding on their behalf. So the church, that's how the church celebrates, when it feels like we have taken someone and delivered him to heaven.
Yes.
That's really the mission of our church. And once we feel that one, then we're joyous. We're sad if someone obviously is not as far away from God and maybe ended their life, or if they ended their life, we can't pray on them. But if, let's say, we're not sure, or if something dramatic happened in their life, then we tend to be sad because we're not sure exactly how far they've advanced in their spirituality.
Yes.
So the Coptic tradition where the mourners were wearing white, when did that change to them wearing black?
I think you have to differentiate Coptic church in Egypt versus Coptic church in other parts of the world. Every country has its own culture, and obviously the Coptic church in Egypt has a culture that is surrounded by an Egyptian culture where everybody wears black and they mourn and they cry and they yell and they scream and so forth. That shouldn't influence us to follow in that in those steps, but at the same time, we can't go too extreme that we become a stumbling block to the people around us.
Right.
So, if someone, let's say, a very important person dies in our church, and let's say you're getting political diplomats to come and mourn, they can't just see a church that's all joyous and up and down, be like, what's going on here? So again, in our Orthodox faith, it's all about a balanced approach to make sure that, yeah, we're happy that this person has went to heaven, but we can still wear black for cultural reasons.
Right. So I guess this is a very important part, Abuna, because this is really the goal from having this episode and talking about this topic, as unpleasant as it is. But really the goal is we want to bring the awareness. We want people to be also balanced between what's supposed to happen and what really happens in reality and where we should stand. So, and what you said is very important. We don't want to offend anybody. We want to be respectful to the customs of the people around us. But also, if we don't agree with it because it is not biblical or it is not right from a Christian perspective, we also have to be aware of that.
Sure. Yeah, so that's really where, you know, everything that we do, it's under the umbrella of wisdom. You know, we have to be wise in our decisions, wise in our actions, wise in our habits, and so forth. So to find that happy balance, that's why you can't just generalize and say everybody has to wear black or everybody has to wear white.
Right.
You know, that tends to be a bit superficial, and it depends on the culture that you're in, and depends on how people perceive death. But our belief is very simple. This is just a passage. You know, we are sojourners. We are just travelers here. Ultimately, we're trying to get to heaven. So that passage is just a passage from here to there.
Right.
The other thing I think of too is, you know, I know that we should be joyous and I know that it should be a celebration, but when I put myself in that situation, it becomes completely different, right? Like I think about it and you are sad. You're not, like I 100% believe that, you know, they let a person lead a good life. They're going to heaven. We suffer here and they're going to be, you know, in the paradise, right? But you know, just the humanity piece of it, I couldn't personally imagine wearing white. Like I couldn't. And I think that's where probably the barrier comes from though, is the emotional aspect of it.
So
I understand, but I mean, from some of the research, and I didn't really get good research on this, but one was saying that before they used to wear white with the martyrs. So when did that tradition change? Did it change with the Islamic conquest or with them coming? So our culture changed, and so now we're wearing black and we're thinking that's the right way to be? Or when did the black come along?
I think depending on really the source that you follow, some people say the black started in the Victorian era. Some people say no, the black started really from the ancient Egyptians. Some people say even before that. People used to, before they wear black, they used to paint themselves in black or something dark, so that's like a symbol of being sad and mourning. So it really depends, but the fact is we do it now, and some people take it to the extreme where they wear black and they wear it for a very long time, and also do other things which we're going to talk about later, other traditions that, and then if they don't do it, that means they don't really appreciate the person who
really
passed,
love the person,
or didn't.
right?
Yes,
If
exactly.
if you're trying to look at it from a pure Christian church perspective, you know, you look at the rite of the funeral prayers. What does the church do? Just so it gives us at least an indication of how we should react.
Okay.
If you follow that rite, it's very simple. We start the same way as any other service. You know, the priest starts with Eleison Mes, starts with Our Father, starts with the prayer of giving thanks. So that doesn't change. And that gives us a nice anchor for a lot of the things that we do. And that shows you how steady the church is. Whether we're doing a marriage or a baptism or a communion or even a prayer on someone. It's very consistent. Yes, some are sacramental and some are just prayers, but still the steps are there. You know, biblically we say rejoice always. Again, I say rejoice.
Right.
You can't go far with that. It's rejoice always. Anytime we say always or all, or it's pretty straightforward.
Right.
You know, when we look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, and it says, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and everything give thanks. That's how we take a verse and implement it in the church and say, okay, so you say this in the Bible, how are you doing this? Well, here's a good example. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, everything give thanks. Why? Because this is the will of God in Christ for you. That's the verse.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, it makes sense. The church is doing what the Bible is teaching us,
That's
regardless of what's happening.
Yes, that's very
Regardless of
beautiful.
what's happening. So, yes, the emotional element, of course, we're not robots,
Right.
comes in. Obviously, people tend to be more joyous in a wedding or in a baptism than they tend to be in a funeral prayer.
Yes.
That's fine.
And that's understandable.
But the church still maintains that composure and that steady hand in everything. So people don't feel like we have the right now, if someone died, go to the extreme, or we're going to wear black for the next month, or we're going to wear black for the next... How do you do that and say rejoice always? No, so it comes down to the balance. But as a church, we're pretty steady, we're pretty anchored in everything that we do, regardless of what happens. Because, you could look at examples for the martyrs in Egypt. Talk about being sad.
Yes.
Are you being sad or being happy? A lot of people die. So are we being sad or being happy?
Really mixed emotions.
It's a mix of, but the church doesn't say, oh, a lot of people died, we have to change the church rites now.
No,
We're not going to give thanks. We're not going to say the prayer of thanksgiving.
No,
No, steady hand, steady as you go.
Yeah, that's very important. So how do you address the people who really take it to the extreme? And I give you examples, and these are things that I see every time somebody dies. They're staying home, they're not going out, they're not going to church, no TV. The kids are not allowed to even turn the TV on. If there is a celebration or let's say Christmas coming up or Feast of Nativity or Easter, we're not going to go to church, we're not going to participate in any celebration, even القداس ليلة العيد, we're not going to any of that because we have someone died. And they do this at least for a year. And I'm sure in Egypt, people who are more restricted, they do it longer and more intense. I mean, so how do you address, what would you say to these?
Look, again, we're generalizing here. I would bet that the people that are very close to God, that are, steady in their fasting and their prayers and going to church, yes, it could be a sad occasion, but that doesn't alter someone's path. I've seen priests that their only child passes away in an accident. They don't say, okay, I'd say I'm not going to be a priest anymore, I'm not going to practice. No, and a lot of them still wear white and they're still joyous. And so usually that is a reflection of how close the person is to God. And I use a general rule. If you're talking to someone that's always miserable, they haven't practiced rejoice always.
Right. Enough.
So enough. There's another verse that says, the joy of the Lord is my strength.
Yes.
So again, how do you go and become a churchgoer and read the Bible and attend church and still wear black and not eat and not drink and do all? You can't intermix the two.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is sad, leaving someone behind. I'm sure it is sad. But again, if our only hope was on earth, then I would agree with this person. If there's nothing else after this earth, then fine. But this person has to know, no, this is just a journey. You'll see this person soon. This is not, we're never going to see each other. This is just, I'll see you later. This is not a goodbye. This is, I'll see you later.
Yes.
So that's how we could work with a person like that and say, okay, this is just temporary. I know it's sad. It's okay to be sad. We're not trying to diminish the humanity side.
So are the widows who are wearing black for the rest of their lives, are they imbalanced here? Or are they just worried about gossip?
I think it's a cultural thing. I haven't seen that many widows in the U.S. that are wearing black forever. But I know in Egypt they do. So I don't know if it's a cultural thing. It's definitely not biblical. It's definitely not Christian. It's definitely not Orthodox.
Okay,
So,
great.
I will
So
say,
this is very good point. This is like bottom line. It is not.
So Susie, you asked, I did some research and Bible.org actually had some good information when it came to traditions. And it's funny because it's absolutely, we are mentioned in there. And I found that it's tradition. So I'm going to read it because it's some information. But the custom of wearing black funeral attire goes back to the days of the Roman Empire when they would wear dark togas as a symbol for mourning. Then it became popular during the Renaissance and throughout the 19th century, especially for women. They would take basically like little trinkets like brooches that from the family member and make sure and they wore that, and that was part of keeping that person alive for them. Then
So that's
it says,
celebration.
yeah,
That's
it is.
celebrating.
It's celebration. But it really shows you that tradition, you know. But it says, interestingly enough, in rural parts of Latin America and the Mediterranean, widows will also wear black for the remainder of their lives. Whereas other family members wear the color for an extended period of mourning. So, to your point, you know, it's not biblical. It's probably more tradition.
Roman tradition.
Exactly. It stems back very far.
And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I have, where this creates a problem in the family because, let's say,
the woman doesn't want to wear black
the
anymore.
woman does exactly.
Maybe a husband's like, "What are you doing? Your son has passed
so
away.
if the
you have to wear
husband,
black
mother,
forever."
or father died, or brother, or whatever, and then she doesn't want to wear black for that extended period of time, that creates friction. And so you don't respect my family, or you don't love them enough, and so on and so forth.
I definitely never thought about that, but I can also see, like, you know, wearing black forever and avoiding all the joyous occasions and all that really, like, leading to things like depression. I mean, that if you're taking...
What are you saying?
I know. Oh, sorry, Buna.
No, it does not lead to
Not in your case. Not in your case.
But you get to wear white sometimes.
Yes, that's true. That is true. You get to celebrate. But I mean, I could really see that, you know, if you're avoiding all the joyous events going forward in your life, you know, I could see that being like a very big source of isolation too.
But again, that comes down to those events are the source of that person's joy. And that is not what we're after.
Right.
We're not after external things that brings us joy. You know, the true joy comes down to our relationship with God, plain and simple. So that is always reflective of how people are. You know, if someone's always joyous, that means they have a pretty good relationship with God.
Yeah.
If people saying, I'm not happy, I want to do this, I want to do this, let's go out here and let's go out there and let's go on vacation, they tend to rely on those things to bring them
To
joy.
make them happy,
And even
yeah.
if they bring them joy temporarily, that's it. That's really that's how far it's going to go.
Yeah.
So there's an underlying message here that is this really your true joy to wear colors, to watch TV, to whatever else that you mentioned that people stop doing? Then that's not really your true joy.
Right. But in some families, it involves even kind of like stopping participating in church events. Like it's Christmas Eve or Easter's Eve, and we're not going to go to church because this is a celebration, and we're not celebrating this year because we had someone who passed away.
I don't understand that perspective.
Yeah.
That to me does not make sense.
So Abuna, and it comes to mind now, and I know this is not included in the questions, but I'm going to take this further a little bit to the next level. Some people are actually, when someone passes, they're angry at God. They feel like they might be doing this to punish him in a way. What would
Common thought. That's the common thought.
Yeah.
Especially if it's
To
someone
punish the person
their
that's
child.
that
To punish
died, or to
God,
punish
that
the
I'm
person?
not going to go to church.
Oh,
I'm
do you want to
going
punish God?
Some
Oh,
people,
punish God. Oh, I haven't.
Okay, I didn't think that one. I thought
Like,
you
I
meant
personally-
that God is punishing
No.
the
That's
person.
That's what I thought.
some people
Okay,
think
so-
about this.
So
like,
let's just
what
get
did
something. Let's just get something clear. You
Sure.
can't punish God.
Right. Yeah.
It's the hubris and the excessive pride that people have. I'm going to punish you.
Yeah.
With all due respect to
Very
whoever says that,
narcissistic.
it's very, very, it's excessive pride. It's hubris
Right.
that you think that you're going to punish God by not going to church. So that has underlying issues that we need to talk about separately in
Less
confession.
than funeral.
The people that I thought you meant the people that are thinking that God is punishing the person who's mourning, or punishing the person that
That's what I
died.
thought as well.
No,
They're-
punishing the person that's left behind
yeah.
because
Okay.
they have to suffer
They're
the
taking
loss.
their
Again,
loved one.
it's a reflection of the relationship with God. If you're thinking that God is just there to provide something for you, and if you don't get it, He's mad at you, then you're at that level of relationship.
Yeah.
You know, He's a provider. He doesn't provide. He doesn't like me. That's not the right.
Very concrete,
Yeah. So again, the joy of the Lord and that steady progression towards heaven really comes down to your relationship with God on a very private, intimate level. It's not your relationship with God in front of people. It's not your relationship with God at church. It's part of it, but that's not the whole thing.
Right.
It really comes down to what is your true relationship with God in your own house, in your own room, behind closed doors where no one is looking? Are you constantly praying? Are you constantly not praying? These are the depth of the person's spirituality.
Yeah.
People that tend to say, well, he punished me, but you're not at that level if you think that God just does this and this. You haven't really grown into knowing God. It's like talking about someone that we all know, and people say, no, but he hates me. I'm like, are you serious? Have you met him? But he doesn't. He really doesn't. Look at what he did and what he did. And we're talking about just a relationship between people that know. So let's say we all know, Pope Shenouda very well, thrice blessed. And we know what he's like, and he's been with us for years and years and years, and we know that what his personality is like. And someone says something that's extreme, that's exact opposite. You're like, what are you talking about? Have you met him? Have you really talked to him? Have you seen him? Have you listened to his sermons? Have you read his books? There's nothing that he's doing is reflective of what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with God, but obviously on a higher level, on a more intimate level.
Okay, so Abuna, then going past the wearing black and the pride and what these issues, what's a good way an Abuna can comfort someone who's mourning, whether to repair their relationship with God or someone who has a very good relationship with God, but of course is mourning and needs really good guidance or great words or stories or comfort? What are some great ways
one
to
of
do
the
that?
things, again, you're talking to a priest that's just been a priest for like 2 months now, so please use that as a disclaimer at the bottom of the screen.
No, but you sound very wise, so
with
I'm
my
sure you
previous
have something
life,
to say.
pre-priesthood, and for the past 2 months, I realized that a lot of time, the best thing that you could do is really listen to someone, and listening is a skill. Right. It's not just standing there and nodding your head. It takes more to really truly listen to someone and say, yes, I understand, or tell me more. And there's a lot of good books, psychological books, about how to truly listen. How do you mirror someone's, emotional intelligence? How do you mirror someone's outside gestures to show them that you're really sincere? So as much as you can, for as many issues that are you're getting exposed to, whether it's someone is sad, or whether it's someone that's dealing with an issue, try to truly listen and try to really make sure that you're there for them. If you truly listen, you'll get to that root cause of what is it that's really making you sad, and then maybe you can try to solve it that way. If you don't really truly listen, then most likely you're coming up with a solution that's not quite accurate. So just focus, take your time, take them aside, listen to them, understand them, being empathetic, In the Bible, when we look at the story of Lazarus and how Jesus wept, I always wonder, why did Jesus weep? In a few minutes he's gonna, say, Lazarus, come forth. Why is he weeping? And the only reason that I could think of is that being empathetic. Yeah. He's putting himself in the shoes of the sisters of that person. It's not sympathy, it's empathy. It's being empathetic. I'm going to put myself in your shoes. I'm going to try to feel exactly what you're feeling. And if I get to that point, then I will weep as well. So listening, being empathetic, really putting yourself in that person's shoes, taking your time. People have different backgrounds, different issues. Don't demand that they have to be faithful and they have to have the joy of the Lord. And okay, take it easy. They'll get there, but just take it easy. Maybe that would help.
It's so funny you say that. So, obviously I had to research this topic. It's not like I know a ton about it, but I saw that story and I never thought about it. We've all read that story like so many times, but I never thought about it from that aspect of like, I think that you're more heard too if you are empathetic. If you like you said, if you went forward and said like, don't grieve, what are you, not a believer? That's different, right? Than actually saying like, you know what, like I understand it's sad. Like if Jesus wept with them knowing exactly what he was gonna do, it's not like he didn't know, then it makes sense. So it's good to note too that the Bible doesn't condemn grieving, right? It doesn't condemn it. It doesn't necessarily mean you are far away from God. It could mean that, but it's not, the defining factor.
Well, there are multiple stories of how they used to put dirt on their face and put on the sackcloth. So we do see them mourning in the Bible lots of times. And I believe some of the Egyptians, at least in Egypt, would put dirt on themselves as well while they're wailing. So
yeah, they do. Well, fortunately here they
Not
don't
here.
do that.
Yeah, thank God.
Right. That would. So Abuna, when we go to give condolences to people in their homes after someone dies, what would be a good way to do that instead of just sitting and gossiping or
Yes.
which this, I'm talking reality.
That does happen, yes.
Please don't gossip.
You know,
Not empathetic.
because it's a setting where people are sitting down and there is nothing to really do and there's nothing
Because the TV's off.
and the TV is off and it's a lot of people, sometimes people that you don't know or you don't know that well, and you're just sitting there and
So a lot of times, again, thankfully I have not been exposed to a lot of these scenarios, but again, try to see what they're going through, you know. Try to make it all about them, not about here's my plan. I'm going to come in 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to turn the Bible on. I'm going to pray. That could be plan B. But plan A could be all about what is it? How can we comfort you? What is it that you need? Again, it goes back to my first issue about listening to them. And listening doesn't just, you know, you hear by, or you don't listen just by the words, by their gestures. What are they doing? Are they sitting? How are they positioning themselves? Are they sad? Are they leaning forward? Are they thinking? All these things are cues to tell you what they're going through. And try to cater to them. You're there for them. You're not there for yourself. You're there for them.
Right.
So try to understand what is it that they're going through. Some people might not want to talk. Okay, cater to that. Some people want to talk. Some people want to ask questions. If there's a priest around, maybe they want to ask questions to the priest.
Right.
Some people might be okay to pray. Would it be okay if we all pray together?
Right.
Some people might be okay to reading a passage from the Bible. Some people might be okay to sing a song, a hymn. Whatever. Let it be about them, not about, here's what I'm going to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you skip the first one. Okay, we're going to the second. No. Have all of that in your back pocket. But as a general rule, anything that has to do with God, even the name of God, we even say the name of God, brings joy to people. Even saying our Lord Jesus Christ brings joy to people. So anything that's, you know, in the Bible, it's really beautiful how it says, abide in me. Abide is not just come and stand close to me. It's like, it's so intertwined in me. Like, when do I start? When do you end? And no, abide. Like, just get glued in.
Right.
So anytime we just hold on to anything that has to do with God, it brings holiness, joy, peace, any form. But let's not go in with an agenda.
Right.
Let's just go in,
So
listen.
It's a very important point that let's make it about the person who's mourning, really the family, and not about us. And that's, you know.
Some people, I've heard stories, again, I haven't been exposed to it, but some people have gotten to the point that they understand that maybe someone just needs a hug or a pat on the shoulder, or they're worried about how to take care of all these people that are coming to their house. So, okay, take them aside. What is it? Okay, no problem. We'll go get that for you. We'll take care of you. And that brings a bit of peace. Some people are worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. Okay, no problem. We'll be here with you. We'll visit you. So you're catering the solution to their needs.
Right, right. Well, thank you, Abuna, for being here.
What a topic, huh?
Yes,
It's a good one, though. I mean, we all are going to go
happy.
through it, or we have gone through it. So I actually, you know, while it might be something not joyful for other people to hear, it might be someone going through it that will hear it, and hopefully we'll get some peace from it.
Yeah. Thank you, Abuna, for being here with us.
No problem.
It's really a blessing.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.